learn to count. One, two, one. Hello, everybody. Hello. All right, let's turn on the camera. Hey, there I am. Hi, everybody. Hello. So I am happy to say hello to everybody today. Welcome. This is the Plugin Guru live stream. My name is John Skippy Limcool, a name passionately given to me when I was working as a product specialist at Korg. God, 35 years ago, 34 years ago, something like that. And we have a new library, and I'm going to show you more about this library in the second half of this live stream because I have something really special for the first half. This is a library released by a new programmer to our little group of programmers. This is from Saif Smir. Saif is a talented friend that I have known for a long time. Never met the dude in person, but someday the number of people that I work with, I send them royalties that I've never met. The graphic artist that does all the artwork for my libraries, Bob Deddes, that's done demos for like 15 years, and he's done some incredible libraries. By the way, I have a sneak peek of his next library to show you at the very, very end of this live stream, and you will not want to miss it. That's coming next week, and you won't believe what that is. But anyway, Saif has a library. He calls it Opulenta Plus, and it is for TAL's You-Know-LX. And I was thinking about this in the shower, and I think the LX I'm supposed to say is 60. So then it's You-Know 60. So instead of Juno 60, it becomes You-Know 60. So I don't know. In the videos and everything, I call it You-Know-LX. And the guys in Germany are probably laughing, going, he doesn't know we mean 60. Because it's LX is the Greek words for 60, right?
Roman numerals.
Roman numerals. There you go. Thank you, Peter. So it's a library of 202 patches. I'm on the wrong library over here. Let me get over here really quick. 205 patches. And then I have added, and as you can see, it's all unified. And at the bottom, I've added this 3-patch template, which gives you a bass and then 2 sounds in the right hand and a pump house that's turned off, so it sounds like this. Turn on the pump house and you get the... Anyway, this library is on sale for $15 at the website. There's a link to the library in the video description, so please pick this up. Show Saif a big welcome. If you don't own TAL's You-Know 60, I will show you about that at the second half of the live stream when we cover this part. But it's like a $60 plugin, so it's not a huge investment to get this incredible in-your-face, the sounds of the Juno 60. It has a very unmistakable in-your-face sound. If you go through the factory patches and then you play these patches are like patches on steroids. They're all so in your face and all the good things to it. So we will look at this more in the second half. I have something really special for the first half. Korg just released an update to the legacy, their collection. They have a whole bunch of synthesizers at this point. If you go to the Korg's website, you can get into the it's so cool. Between the M1 and the Triton, this one has the Vox Super Continental added. It has this incredible Fender Rhodes added, and the star of the show is the ARP 2600, and it's by far the most, we'll talk about this in a minute, but there is no synthesizer in software form I can think of that goes to the extents of trying to be a synthesizer in the true sense of the word. There's the three oscillators each have different characteristics to them. The ADSR envelope works very differently than the AR envelope does, as far as parameters actually are shifting inside of the ADSR as you're changing the sustain, the decay, because that's what the real instrument does. They modeled every component to infinite detail. So I will show you the electric piano and the Vox Continental after we get through this next part, because I'm really excited that a dear friend of mine that I have been friends and colleagues with for, what, Peter, 30 years? 35, more than that. 30.
I hate doing this math.
I know, I do too, because it makes me
the
feel
number gets
really
so
old.
large. It's over like 30, 35 years maybe.
It's a long time. So the voice you hear is Peter Schwartz. And if you go to author in the voicing of this and you go to the ski patches, that is Peter Schwartz. If you remember Ski Jam from the Wave Station, that's Peter Schwartz. We've worked together on the Wave Station since before the Wave Station. Did you work on the O1W?
O1W, yeah. I did. I didn't do any sounds, but I did what they call the non-linear distortion tables, which are like wave shaping tables.
Right. You did those.
Yeah, it was the weirdest gig I've ever had. So
wait, here, we'll talk about that in a minute when I get your picture on the screen, because
okay.
you're currently covered up by the interface of the 2600.
That might not be a bad thing.
But let me show you just a second of the sounds of this. This is the 2600 by Korg, and there are other versions of this in existence by Cherry Audio, which is very nice, and the Arturia one is equally very nice. They go nowhere close to the level of detail. Here, the sawtooth waveform you can set as an audio input to feed into the engine, just like you can on a real 2600. You can right-click on any plug to insert dummy plugs. There's this trim pot page where you have voicing variabilities that can change the amount of deviation in the sound. There's even on the settings page, you can get to such things. By the way, on the settings page, make sure you change the silk screen from original, where it shows no color. Put it to color. So now you see everything grouped by color. But there's even a CMT ID. This is like the thing, Brainworks did a similar thing with their CMT modeling, where there's actual variables changing and stuff. You can give this its own ID, and if somebody else has a plugin and their CMT ID is different, there are variables that will be different between the two. So if you're working on a film and you send a patch to your colleague in like New York to work on, you'll want to make sure your CMT ID is the same, so that the envelopes and everything are the same as what you were working with. But the sounds it creates, it's to the point of detail where they have the ARP 2600 patch book, and they're going to actually add more patches. They've done more of these. There was back in the day a patch book of patches for the original ARP 2600. You can model every one of those patches, and it sounds identical to the way it sounds in the actual 2600. Based on the settings in the cookbook, so you can learn programming and how things work. Even the trick where you can use the sync, and I think it's like the pulse width setting. To change where the split point is, where it's using a weird offset thing of the split point to make it have a keyboard split, even though it's physically not possible. But there was a trick they came up with, was the pulse widths. All of those details of the original 2600, the tricks, all those things have been modeled into this version of the 2600. So it is just a work of art. Nobody has attempted anything to this level as far as I can tell. Oh, I forgot to send a link to Jack. I was going to send a friend of ours the link. I'm going to take just 1 second to get him on the list. Let me see here. Messages. Let's see. There we go. So I just want to send one link really quick. Sorry, I forgot to do this, and I promised him that I would. And we want Jack to be here and just watching in the stream. So if I go to YouTube. So anyway, let me bring Peter on board while I'm futzing around. Go over here, go to Zoom.
I'm going to send Jack a message, let him know to look out for the link.
Yeah. And yeah, he's our dear friend. Did he hire you, get you involved in Korg way back in the day?
Okay. Message sent. So yeah.
By the way, this is Peter. Hello, Peter.
Hello. Hello. I see myself now too.
Oh, yes.
Awesome.
So Peter has worked with Korg. Have you worked with other companies doing voicing?
Yeah. Most of my work's been with Korg. More recently, I did a lot of factory sounds for the Yamaha Montage X, which was joy. I have one sitting here. I can't show it to you because it's a prototype.
Oh, I love it.
But I pulled every every stop I could to say, can I just hold on to this for a while?
Yes.
And they said yes. So it's a beautiful controller. I've had so much fun with it. I've also done some patches for Kurzweil and for and that was back in the day, and for the Prophet 6 when it came out. It was really weird. They were sending this prototype Prophet 6 around to programmers all over the country, and we literally had 2 days each to make some sounds, put it back in the road case, call FedEx, and send it off to the next place.
Wow.
Trying to think, maybe there've probably been some other projects as well, but most of my work has been for Korg.
Right. And on top of that, you were musical director with David Bowie at one point.
Yeah. I started out as a musical director for Madonna, and then David, I get a call on the phone one day, British accent, like, hi, I can't, my wife is British, and after 22 years, I still can't do a really good British accent, but
yeah.
I'll do my best. It's like, I hear this voice on the phone, like, hello, can I speak to Peter? And it's like, I'm like, that sounds like David Bowie. And he goes, this is David Bowie. And and at that point, even though I thought it sounded like him, I was like, no, you gotta be kidding. he saw the production that I did with Madonna, and he was like, I'm doing a similar like promotional tour. Could you be my musical director? And that went on to become I got another call to do a world tour with him, where he double billed with Nine Inch Nails. So that was really interesting.
Wow.
And I've been musical director for Enya, her only musical director when she's done promo in the US.
Wow.
So, and Hanson.
Okay.
Mbop.
Wow. Okay.
So my musical director, milieu is like, it's not. I'm not pigeonholed. I never pigeonholed myself.
Right.
Apparently. So yeah, no, I've had a long and varied career.
That's beautiful stuff. Well, it's been a joy to always get to hang with you and go to Japan, and some legendary hangs have happened, and Simo-san! Osaki yomonagashimashou! Wasn't that Birdland? Was it Birdlando? Where you hit
it was what was it called? It was this we used to call, if Jack comes on, he'll be able to tell us what the name of the restaurant was.
Yeah.
We would spend very long days in the Korg building doing programming, or whatever we were doing.
Meetings, voicing, voting.
voting. Yeah, we used to get together, and we're all doing our own thing. You, me, Jack, McKelly, Steve McNally. Yes. And then once our programs were tight enough, we would evaluate everyone's programs and vote on them.
Right.
The days were very, very long. Typical like Japanese work ethic. Yeah. And by the time 6:30, 7 o'clock rolled around, it was time to go out and eat. And we went to this little hole-in-the-wall restaurant.
Like Susumi-san or Sumi-san. There was some funny name like that. We'll see if Jack comes on.
Yeah. And when you wanted to order some food, there was this wooden board hanging from chains on the ceiling, like about here. And they had a mallet, a wooden mallet, and you basically hit the board with the mallet. And the piece of wood had this like their logo was a sparrow.
Yes.
So we used
We
to
called
call
it
it,
Kill
when are
the
we going to kill
Sparrow.
the sparrow? Is it time to go to kill the sparrow yet? And
That's
there
right.
were some absolutely epic hangs.
Oh man, man.
So, don't think that us programmers are all, studiously with our glasses on going, what should
Yes.
the cutoff frequency be to get the, it's like we have fun. We're technical
Yeah.
and we have fun, and we're all musicians, and
Yes.
you know,
And
there's a
someone
lot
said
of
they see the prophecy behind you, and that is another of the synths that you did work on.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Beautiful prophecy.
I still love that thing. I
And
still
where's
use it.
Lucy?
You can see
I
her
see
ear.
her ear. Her ear.
There's
Yeah.
her ear
The
right
studio
there.
chihuahua.
The
Everyone
studio chihuahua.
everyone has to have one. Mine's on the other side of the wall in her bed with her rope in her mouth. That's what
Aw.
she loves rope. So we go on walks pulling on rope and stuff like that. Anyway, so um we you got the opportunity. I was busy with other stuff and they didn't ask me, but you got to be involved on the 2600.
Yeah. I started working on this when it was like, a beta version, and went through the whole process of, certain things weren't ready yet,
Yes.
and saw the progression of improvement and, bug fixes, and um, you know, I always seem to get in like on the ground floor, and sometimes that's a blessing and sometimes it's a curse.
Yeah.
But
Well, you don't get
it's
paid for ground floor access quite often, so it's pay at your own risk, right? You know?
yeah, it's like, how come this doesn't work? Send an email, such and such doesn't work. Oh no, we haven't finished that section yet. Or we're still figuring out whether we want it to behave this way or that way. So yeah, there's a lot of that that,
Yeah,
that
there's
goes
some of that
on.
until the midnight hour, even on some of the parameters. So, well,
Yeah.
hey, pop up your screen, share the photo you showed me of what you
Oh,
started with this in school. This is how you started school,
not
right?
not this one. Where is it? Here we go. I started with this one. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay, so this is an ARP 2500. This was the predecessor to the 2600. It's a modular synth, even though it doesn't, you know, look like what you might expect today, from like a Eurorack perspective. All these jacks on the side were connected to the various inputs and outputs of the different modules.
Right.
And so you could cross patch things. I could take something from here and run a patch cable into here. But the way that you programmed sounds was to move these matrix sliders,
Wow.
all these little rows here.
Right.
Um, they're detents in the slider, and so they would click up.
Makes my head hurt just thinking about that.
And this is how you made connections
Yeah.
between, let's say, the output of an oscillator and the input of a filter, the output of a step sequencer into the cutoff frequency of the filter. You would set these
Right.
sliders, and um,
And
yeah,
then
this
hope you had a
this is
decent
the
resolution camera to take a picture of it, right? Because all those little dots would be
yeah,
so hard to see in a
but
4x6, right?
yeah, and back in those days, if you did want to take a picture, you'd have to, send it off to be developed,
Right. Right.
as you would know,
Yes.
being the
Yeah.
photographer that you are. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is the predecessor.
Wow.
Um, this is actually a view of the Electronic Music Lab a couple of years after I graduated. This is at Manhattan School of Music. So this is probably like 1985, but you can see, even though they've updated their system with DX7s, which was the latest thing at the time,
Yeah.
the ARP still lives. And that was
Wow.
my music professor, Mr. Tannenbaum.
Love it.
So yeah, and it was from this system that, I learned, okay, when you press a key, you generate a gate signal, and what's the gate signal needs to like go somewhere in order to, fire an envelope generator, and then the envelope generator can cause the volume to increase and decrease,
Right.
or the filter to open and close.
Right. Because in an
So
analog
this
synth like
this was
this,
a
the oscillators are sitting there singing full volume and are just controlled by the envelopes and so forth. So something has to tell it to just open
yeah,
up the volume so you can hear it.
right. This is yeah. this is a modular synth. So the oscillators are always running.
Yeah.
The filter is set wherever it's set. The amplifier is always closed unless you want it to be open, and you have to, I mean, it's just like my,
Yeah. The modular stuff
modular
behind you.
synths of today.
Yeah. Yeah.
It used this novel approach of sliders to make the connections.
Right.
So the sliders were your patch cords.
Right. Right. Well,
And
what is it about the 2600 that has been such a passionate thing for so many people for so long? I mean, it truly is considered one of the pioneer synths of all synths in many circles. And why is that?
because well, this is my opinion. I think because it allows for such flexibility in sound design.
Yeah.
Um, Now, on one hand, this is this is considered a semi-modular synth. I say that with air quotes because just for example, you can see here that there's a connection. This is one of the oscillators,
Yeah.
oscillator one,
Right.
and there's a slider here where the output of the sample and hold generator, which is just an LFO, outputs random values at regular intervals. It's pre-patched to this slider. So this is a convenience,
You don't need a
and it was
cable.
thought
Right.
you don't need a cable. So you don't need to do what I'm doing right now. You don't need to do that.
Right.
It's pre-wired.
Right.
And the connections, these they're almost like, they're called normals. They're almost like connection presets, and they were really well thought out because of all the different components in the synthesizer. What would you choose to modulate frequency with? And their choices were very, very, intelligent. And if that's not what you wanted, then, just like I did, like, okay, I'll patch this over to here. So
Right.
instead of modulating pulse width with noise generator, I'll modulate it with sample and hold. So there was an extreme amount of flexibility. You could work with zero patch chords
Hmm.
and get a sound,
Yeah.
get good sounds, but then you could start turning up these sliders with the preset connections. If they weren't what you wanted, you just grab a patch cord and you start repatching things.
Right.
And
And there's so
uh,
many tools in it. In the middle are all the lag voltage processors. Um,
yeah,
it's so much more than just an oscillator and a filter and an EG. There's all these additional purple colored things, the green colored sequencers and additional envelopes are just
yeah,
open up so many tools to play with.
right. So where, whereas by modern standards, you might say, well, the 2600 was pretty limited. First of all, it was one of the only commercial synths aside from the Mini Moog that had three oscillators, so that was a big deal.
Yes.
Um, so you can get a fat sound, or uh, each of the oscillators has the original and this one have these. I'm just undoing here to get back to the beginning.
Right.
They have a low audio range switch. So if you flip the switch, you can now use the oscillators in low frequency mode, use them as LFOs.
Right. Right.
And so that offered another degree of flexibility
Right.
because the original ARP 2600 did not have its own independent LFO. So
Right.
like the Mini Moog, if you wanted vibrato, you had to use oscillator 3 for that.
Right.
In this case, you could use any one of these oscillators to act as an LFO. So one of the additions, or in fact, if I'm not mistaken, no, okay, so it's like one and a half. So what Korg did was they added a dedicated LFO. They call it auxiliary LFO,
Yes.
but it's just an LFO. It's got three different waveforms. Um, One of the things that they did on this LFO was they provided a saw down waveform, which is not provided by the original ARP oscillators. The ARP
Right.
oscillators are all saw up
Right.
waveforms.
Right.
So, when you were using an original ARP and you wanted to get, bow, 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 you would have to use one of these oscillators in low frequency mode, and you'd have to patch it into a voltage processor
And then it,
and invert
Right. Which is now a button. You didn't have that on the 2600. You had to double process to invert it because of the way.
Right.
Right.
That's right, because some of the inputs on the voltage processors are in phase and some are out of phase, and
Right.
you had to know all those intricate details.
Right. Right.
So they added an LFO. They added a third envelope generator,
Right.
which is completely different from the other two. So your original 2600 envelope let's start again. Generators are an AR attack release, but it's really an A sustain. It's really an ASR where the
Right.
sustain segment is fixed at 100%. So the when you trigger it, it will ramp up to this fixed sustain level, and when you release the key or the gate concludes, it
Right.
will decay down to zero again.
Right.
And then the other one was ADSR, typical ADSR.
Right.
And so what Korg did was they added what they're calling an auxiliary envelope, which has a delay time,
Yes.
and it also has a looping feature. And
We like looping.
we like looping.
Yeah.
And it also has a release voltage, so that when the envelope concludes, it doesn't have to settle at zero. It can settle it at a higher level.
Lovely.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it can be triggered by different things.
Right. Right.
And they added this. It's basically an SEM filter, which is which way do I have to move to show the SEM? That this is an Oberheim two voice.
Here, let me do this.
Oh, can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. This is an Oberheim two voice, which I converted to a one voice with a patch panel. But when people talk about the Oberheim SEM, they're talking about the filter in that thing right there.
Right.
And it has a very specific sound. And in the ARP, it's called the mode sweep filter. And the reason it's called mode sweep is because there's a knob on the original SEM where you can it's not really morphing, but let's just call it morphing.
Right.
The filter between low pass, notch, and high pass.
Right.
And that's one of the things that gives that filter its personalities. You can do low pass filtering, or you can turn it up a little bit and get a little bit of notch leakage. And there's also a bandpass setting on there. So
Right.
Korg added an SEM filter to this, which is really, really useful.
Right.
And a bunch of other stuff. They incorporated what they're calling a motion sequencer. I just think of it as a step sequencer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are two of them, and they can be set to run at different lengths, and you can set the number of repeats for each one. You can set the direction for each one. They're really, really flexible.
Yes.
Just in terms of, like, getting in on what I was saying about getting in on the ground floor. One of the things that I requested and they put in was this gate width control, so that if you were to patch gate out to something,
Yes.
how and it would be a gate for every step of the sequence. So how wide is that gate going to be? Is it going to be just a blip on every step, or is it going to be
full?
Like 50% or 100%? They didn't have that there originally, I don't think. And yeah, if it was there, it didn't work, or I don't remember. But basically, I was like, okay,
take credit for it. Take credit.
I'll take credit for it. So you can take the output of the gate from the step sequencer and use it to modulate things and vary the width of the gate, which I really like. So they added that, and they added a vibrato LFO, which used to be, I think the original ARP 2600 keyboard had an LFO in the keyboard, but not in the synth itself. So the LFO is now incorporated. It just makes sense, right? To incorporate it into the ARP itself. There's an arpeggiator, there's portamento. So yeah, it's a very complete synth, and I love the sound of it, and the programming flexibility. there's other stuff too. I mean, effects. There are three effects. There's a reverb. There's also a spring reverb simulation because the original ARP had a spring reverb built in.
Right.
So you've really got two reverbs, the original spring and then um,
Over
this
here on
other
the side, they
reverb
have it.
effect,
Right.
which, you have different choices of reverbs, including spring.
Right.
Um,
Springy spring.
and let's see what I know it's a lot like it's like why don't you play some sounds? You're sure talking about it a lot,
I
but
know, right?
yeah, so um now, this may not be the kind of sound that you'd expect to hear from a 2500, but 2600, but it's,
It's lovely.
and I'm using polyphonic aftertouch to bring in the sub octave. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but
Well,
I
I hear
can
it. I hear it. Yeah.
lean in,
Yeah. Show us that keyboard, man.
right?
Yeah, it's like got the almost the overtone series of a wind instrument in there somehow, right?
Yeah. And, programming this kind of thing, it, even though it may look complicated because there's a lot of patch cables and stuff. It's sort of this particular sound just came kind of naturally because I was just following sort of what the synth
You'd
kind of
hook up
almost
something
told
and
me
it'd
to
start
do.
doing something, and you go, "Hey,
Yeah,
I want to work with that." Yeah.
right. So this is one of the sounds that's going to be in the thing I'm making for you,
Right.
uh, Ice
Beautiful.
Evolve. But it'll also do.
Yeah, let's mention that really quickly. So there's 34 of Peter's patches inside of the factory voicing. I think there's like 200 patches in the voicing. Peter, because he's been working
Yeah.
on this for a long time, has far more patches than that. And so in August, we're going to be releasing a power pack for the 2600 with these sounds. I'm going to contribute a handful of sounds to it, but the majority of it is these wonderful patches you're hearing from Peter. So it's
Thank you.
it's it's we're not only getting to show you and show our love for this plugin because it deserves a little special star by its name because of the work that's been put in. We know the work that's been put in. Korg has
Mm,
been distributing the ARP and hardware form for a while now, and
right.
they are in a really unique position to be able to study each of those components. And they actually had to tell engineers to stop their research because they had gotten down such rabbit holes of detail to the circuitry, that it really is like a. People say it uses too much CPU, and it's like, well, it's a living thing. It's not just a thing that works in most synthesizers cases where it's just sitting there waiting. You play a note and it randomly puts in the parameter values and out comes the sound. This is actually running in the background as if it was for real happening. So, and it
Yeah.
makes it work differently. It really does have a difference when you sit down and play it. You'll immediately notice that. It's so if you don't own the collection, get the demo, try it out because this is one of those things that your speakers will thank you for putting these sounds through it because it sounds so good.
Yeah, it is. I never thought of that before, but maybe one of the things that has drawn me to the sound of this is the fact that it is very organic. Just like you said, it's
Yeah.
always running. Um,
They modeled the circuitry, and so it's there in running form until you play it and interrupt it, and you hear how you interrupted it, versus it being like most synthesizers where it's just calculating offset values to the things based on when you play a note. It's a very different philosophy for a plugin. So I've titled this the plugin of the year so far because I haven't seen anybody else come to this level of detail in a
yeah,
synthesizer with this many tools to play with. So
yeah, it's a let me just more some more sounds here. Let's see here. All right. This was actually sound. This is sort of just a fun sound. I mean, not every sound has to be like, oh, I'm gonna make money off this, make a record.
yeah.
This is
Yeah, but the sounds you don't plan are the ones that end up being put on records too. So
right. You know, this is the sort of typical like kind of sound that we would make on the ARP 2500. This was the vibe back then for serious electronic music. And the change in texture there is being done with the mod wheel. So
Right.
there's also a modulation matrix.
Right.
So for as much as you can patch stuff around, there's also Korg style like modulation matrix where you can say, okay, use one of these controllers and have it modulate something. So in this
Right.
case, it's a very simple modulation, but it's very effective where I'm changing the rate of the sample and hold with the mod wheel. But I could have probably done the same thing by patching the mod wheel directly and
Ah.
controlling the clock.
There's all sorts of there's so many there's
The-
they did give you like show them real quickly. If you take any slider and you right click on it, you'll see that you can quickly say modulate this. Like go to a slider, if just any slider. And if
okay,
you just right click on it, it says
right.
add mod routing at the bottom. And by doing that, it will pop up the modulation page, and then you can choose what you want as a controller source to change that parameters. And they currently don't have any real-time like LFOs or envelopes, but we talked to them a little bit, the Dan Phillips and Andy, the people that were behind the design and layout and execution of this. And there's maybe, who knows what the future will hold, you know? We can't say anything, but we said it sure be nice.
We did say it sure be nice, and they
Yeah.
went,
Yeah. All right, show us a couple more of these fun
okay,
little examples. Mumbles
sure.
or metal
Mumbles,
mallet.
mumbles.
And I'll show them real quickly on the trim pots page.
Trim pots page. Okay, so the trim pots page, if you're just getting into the ARP,
This is important
it's
information right here.
probably not the first place you'd go, but there is a lot that you can do with the parameters on this page. The voice variation, this is something where you can dial in how much variation there will be from note to note, even if you played the same note repeatedly, which mimics like a synth like the Oberheim,
Like
the
an 8
Max.
voice where it's 8 separate sims and you're playing different sims. So they would give you this to like radically change things if you wanted per note, right?
Right. It totally it randomizes enough very subtle characteristics that when you play the same note twice, the notes won't sound exactly the same, which of course is exactly the opposite of what you get with when you're triggering samples.
Right.
And each one has their own charm. Sometimes you want that machine gun sample thing, obviously, and
Right.
other times you want it to be maybe a little more just, random.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, when you play the same note repeatedly on a piano or a guitar, it's never exactly the same. Never.
Right.
Just it.
Yeah.
Take my word for it. Never.
Yeah.
You know, um,
Yeah.
as opposed to a sample, you play a piano sample, it's like exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so the voice variation in a real analog synth like that one or that one, that comes from either the synth cycling through voice. Well, actually not these because they're monophonic, but like on an OB8 or a Matrix 12, where they have like discrete voice cards. Each voice card, there would be tolerance in the components, so even though they've all got the same like capacitors and resistors and stuff, they're not all manufactured to the same tolerance. So there was a little variation from voice to voice. With monophonic synthesizers like these, as the synth warms up, as it cools down, the tolerance of those components changes slightly, and there's noise in the system. They're not digital, they're analog. So the voice variations, you can get really like granular with it. You can say, okay, let me just set this to 100% and have variations just to the pitch or just to the filter or just to the oscillator waveforms, or you can get.
And these are saved per patch as well, right?
These are saved per patch. That's right. So if you don't want any variation, if you're like, okay, I don't want to take any chances. I just want the sound to
Right.
be repeatable. You just turn that off.
Yeah, I'm doing a hard techno bass and I want to go
Right.
like a hammer.
Yeah, you want that attack exactly the same. You
Yeah.
want the envelopes to sound exactly the same. Yeah,
Right.
you would turn that
Right.
off.
Now at the
Um,
top of the list, point out real quickly that there's an oversampling setting, and you can be saved in each patch at a different setting. But if you click the little setting hamburger little thing and go to settings, you can actually override that. Down at
where
the
is that?
bottom, it says oversampling mode. If you click right there, you can say always use 2 or always use 4. So you can set it to only not go to 4 times oversampling if you have a computer that has, performance issues and you want to have it so that it's going to work better in this situation. Especially if you don't have an M1 newer or the newer computers, you will notice a little bit more work than these. Seems to work really well on the M1 and later PC versions, but some people are still using older. So this is helpful to know that you can set it to be just 2 times oversampling if you want. And then when you change patches, it doesn't look at the setting per patch. It will look at the setting that it's always going to be 2 times oversampling only, so
Right. Um,
that's handy.
oh, just reminded me of something I wanted to say, but it went like in
Oh.
one hemisphere and out the other. Um, oh yeah, the help. So as you can see, as I'm mousing over
Yes.
these parameters here, and even over the parameters, you see stuff flashing at the bottom of the screen. Um, let's just look at oversampling and see what this information says. Oversampling 4 times optimizes audio quality with self-resonance, ring mod, drive, and or VCO mod of VCO or filter frequency, especially at high pitches. That's a lot of information in a short amount of space, but right there,
Yeah.
uh, is the essence of why that's important, not for reasons other than CPU efficiency. And they put a lot of work into each of these little help definitions here. Least amount of words in a small amount of space to get a
Yeah.
big point across. So
Yeah.
if you're ever in doubt as to what something is supposed to do, um,
It's got help
it's
built
like
in.
having a built-in manual.
Right.
Plus, you can also where is that?
Right down there. Online
Open
manual.
online man. So none of you, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but none of you have an excuse now to say, I couldn't find the manual, or I couldn't find it in the manual.
Yeah.
There's the manual, and and once you open that up
Hey,
online,
open it up real quick. Oh, well, you're not sharing the screen. I'll share it here because I want to show that they've got that one page where they
oh,
highlight.
I have it here.
Do
I
you?
can
Okay.
yeah. Where did I put that here? OEM, and I'll just share. By the way, I'm looking up because I have monitors up there and up there. Where is it? Where is it? Preview. Preview? Is that it? Oh, I have to do that first. There we go.
There's a lot of information. Mad props to Dan Phillips for the work of coming up with. He worked so hard on this. The text, when you move over every parameter that it tells you at the bottom of the interface, as well as a lot of the owner's manual, is his wordsmanship. He's quite gifted at that.
Yeah,
Yes.
he so was it additional?
No,
You
just
can
scroll
see
down, just past this, the second page
the second page.
from the top. Yeah, if you just scroll down past the index of the contents, the very next graphic, I believe, is the one right there.
Ah, okay, right. So this shows all the functions, including sync.
Yes.
All the functions that are not
Added.
original to the 2500, the 2600.
Right.
Including a choice of filter types. There's a distortion,
Which is really nice. Very nice distortion.
linear and exponential response for the envelopes, all this stuff. So this is all, the modern take on
Right.
this old synth.
What they did is instead of totally nailing just the 2600, they looked at all the mods that people have done. Marinelli has done some videos with his 2600 recently. We can mod up those patches with this because we have the same parameters. They've added them to the 2600 as the hot wire things that people have done in the past to it. So
Yeah, I thought it might, if we have time, I thought it might be helpful to just sort of really walk through this from scratch.
make a patch real
Right.
quick. Just
Okay.
that's what we do here. So
Nothing like pressure. So, um, 3 oscillators, right? So let's,
by the way,
and so
each of the 3 oscillators have different components to them and sound different. We also learned, we had a meeting with Korg so they could go through this. Each one of the sliders, the sample and hold, the ADSR, and the VCO2 sliders are outputting different voltages. So the 0 to max is a different voltage range from each other, which is just like it is in the 2600. So it's not just a 0 to 100. That's how Arturi and Cherry Audio probably do. I don't know for sure, but that's the level of detail that, I think it's almost 1.0 for one of the sliders, right? He was talking about. So
yeah, one of these sliders. Well, look at the health tag. So
Yep.
this one is calibrated 1 volt per octave, and this one is calibrated at 2.3 volts per octave, which means it's less sensitive.
Yes.
And then this one is calibrated at about 5 volts per octave, 4.9, which again means it's less sensitive to modulation. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Understanding the different sensitivities of these modulation inputs, which affect pitch. So VCO1, you get saw and square. It's just square, right? You go to VCO2 and you get triangle, saw, sine wave, and a variable pulse width pulse wave. Right. And then oscillator 3 is saw and pulse with variable pulse width. But only oscillator 2 has a pulse width modulation input.
Right.
So each, as you work with this, you understand, you will likely develop an instinctive understanding of why you might want to choose one oscillator over another when you're crafting a sound.
Right. Also, oscillator 2 is the only one that has a pure sine wave in it. So if you want to have the pure sine wave tone, there you go.
So let's move on to this follows the traditional subtractive synthesis architecture, moving represented from left to right. You have your sound sources in red.
Right.
You have your filter, and then you have your amplifier. So sound source, sound modifier, volume control.
Right.
The input to the mixer, there are 5 sliders. We won't get into ring mod right now, but this first one, the square wave of oscillator 1 is pre-patched. So if I don't want a square wave and I want the sawtooth wave from that, I just drag a patch cord. And what I think is really neat is that, check this out. So here's the sawtooth wave. If as I'm holding the note, I just temporarily remove the patch cord, you'll hear the square wave.
It's like you're actually disconnecting it, right?
Like you actually disconnected it. So I find that really useful.
Yeah.
So
that's when you get to where like adding subtle things and like, does this really add to it or not? You can disconnect and listen and then reconnect.
Exactly. And you can do that without.
Yeah, you don't break the whole system.
And you know what? This is interesting. This works as exactly as it would be on the hardware, because by plugging a cable in here, you're disconnecting any input from the fader, from the slider, right? So by pulling it out here,
right? So
not
if you plug that into the
sound
sine wave oscillator 2, right? If you plug that into the sine wave of oscillator 2,
right? Oh, I could do this, sure.
Now you have a sine wave.
I'm not limited to using the slider only for oscillator 1. I can and this is this is the essence of modularity.
That's what a real physical synth would do.
Right. So detuning, if it's not obvious already, I'm adding VCO2 to the mix. And now let's do some pulse width modulation. So the default connection is to the noise generator. So and you can change the color of the noise. Now, personally, I don't find that to be the most useful default. I'd rather just use an LFO. So I'm going to drag the triangle wave LFO.
Yep.
Oop, I let go of the mouse too quick. Go in there. Okay. And already I want to distort this sound. So I'm going to take the output of the filter. I'm going to run it into the drive. I'm going to take the output of the drive and I'm going to patch it right back into where the output of the filter is normaled to the input of the
Right.
yeah. But that so the
you're
drive
overriding that connection, so it takes this.
That's right. Lower it down.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I can't do that.
You said something that triggered Siri on my phone that said, "It's sorry, it can't do that." The phone is listening to you even now. It's so funny.
That's hilarious. I just did it, Siri.
Don't need your help. Thank you.
Don't tell me how to program.
That's right.
Let's turn on another oscillator. So that's the sawtooth from oscillator 3, again, normaled because of this connection.
Right.
And I'll detune it. Let's throw this guy in there. Did it do anything? Not really. Let's detune it.
Yeah.
It's I don't like it.
Okay.
Filter. So, filter self oscillates.
Yeah, the filter's beautiful.
Oh, I'm liking where this is going already. Turn this up. Now the keyboard control voltage, that's the voltage that's generated as you play from the bottom end of the keyboard to the top end of the keyboard. It's
Right.
1 volt per octave. That's another preset connection. Of course, it's taking MIDI notes and it's converting that into a voltage, but that is pre-wired to the filter so that the filter tracks the keyboard. If I turn this down, I'm getting less than 1 volt per octave, and so the filter is not going to track.
Right.
Right. Envelope generator. Let me turn down the cutoff, and now the ADSR is normaled to modulate cutoff. If I don't want to use that envelope generator for some reason, I want to experiment with the aux.
Right.
I just take the output, and this breaks the normal. That's the official technical term. It breaks the normal from the ADSR
right
into this slider,
It
and now
reroutes it.
we're going to be.
Yeah.
Come on.
Then bring down your sustain time.
Oh, thanks. I'd rather you tell me how to program this, Siri.
Yeah.
And it growls. I don't know if you can
Yeah.
hear the
No,
little
I hear it. Yeah.
growl.
Also, it's important. Show them on the trim pot page. There's a volume gain, so that as you're playing with things, that post effects volume right there, you don't have to go back and re-crank everything to get it to be a loud volume. If you want it to be louder, you can just use this post effects volume. It's a gain stage at the very output.
Right. So when you're programming, you can leave your fader at 0, and you can adjust the volume from this, what they're calling a trim pot. When you're, if you're making a bank of sounds and you want to level them,
Yeah.
this would be the place to do it. Actually, I think that was one of the last minute ads. That wasn't in any of the like the beta versions, or at least
Right.
I
Well, they
wasn't
use
paying
that
attention.
for because I talked to him about the voicing levels of patches, and so they quickly put that in. I think as a way to normalize patches from one to someone that was a little soft,
Yeah,
without having to program into the engine and like change pan pots and change the patch. You know, it's.
right, right.
I'm glad they did that.
Yeah,
Also show them real quickly. There's two tabs at the very top for effects and reverb. It's actually the same page as you see there on the right of the 4 effects, but now they're in enlarged versions. So if you click effects, you see 1, 2, 3 slots. And then
those
if you hit reverb, you see 2, 3, and reverb, which is, so it's actually like just moving the page down, but it's 2 different tabs. So you have all the parameters for the effects available here beyond what you see on the right. On the right, they give you a handful of parameters to play with, but there
right. This
are a number of effects like the delays and stuff where there's a lot more parameters that are going to crop up when you get into doing all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah. So like yeah, it's instead of giving us a scrolling window.
right,
So it's like you said, it's 1, 2, and 3, and then when you go to reverb,
yeah,
it shifts.
2, 3, and reverb, yeah,
It's almost like it shifts the other two up to show you the reverb. But I gotta say, this is a huge convenience because you know, I don't know. There's only so much scrolling, like your
yeah,
mouse wheel goes flying off, and
right,
this is just a neat little convenience feature that
right,
that I really like.
yeah,
And then so your main pages are main.
right,
You got your effects,
right.
your reverb, your modulation matrix, MIDI mapping, which is I'm not because I'm in an initial
Oh, you're
patch and
in,
I, there's any mapping. But this is a place where you can see where CCs are
right.
mapped
You
to
can
maps.
hardwire things to your controllers in your studio so they don't change per patch. So it's
Right. And then there's the librarian where, you know,
right. And
that
at the bottom left where it says collections are little boxes to check to whether you want to see. There's an audio effect version of this, so the ARP
oh
2600
yeah.
effects patches are there listed so that you can route audio. It's a mono input um, into the engine, just like you could on an ARP 2600 in the studio, which people did all the time to
Right.
to morph out sounds in weird ways and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, there you it's interesting that on Moogs and on even on the Oberheim SEMs, there were audio inputs, but for some reason, sound designers, especially for film, their preference was the ARP. It has this audio input. It has, you can get a lot of gain out of it. I mean, 1,000 times gain.
Yeah.
It also, and then you could take the output of that preamplifier and run it into a filter instead of an oscillator.
Right.
Right.
Or
Or
both.
you could take that signal and you could run it into a ring modulator input. And then on top of that, there's an envelope follower that would generate a voltage in response to the envelope shape of the incoming signal. You could use that to modulate the filter or modulate the pitch of an oscillator. So, there's a lot of flexibility, and you can do this with, so it's like an effects version. I'm not set up to show it now,
Right. Right.
but there's an effects version, and then of the 2600, I keep saying that. And then you have this collection of effects presets,
Yes.
and it's,
Yeah, I can show that in a second here in Unify.
okay.
It's really fun
Okay.
because we can call up existing stuff. Well, cool.
I don't know. I'm not,
That's
I
where
don't
you
know.
ended up. That's
That's
cool.
where I'm saving it.
Like, hey, that's got
Um,
potential.
Lots of potential.
Well,
That's
it's
the
you
name.
have a ring mod as one of the effects over there, so it's a ring mod going through a filtered patch of a bass type of sound. So
Yeah.
that's very cool.
Okay. This might show up in the collection.
Yeah, I
So,
like that. Very boingy.
so yeah, it's very boingy. So yeah, I think,
Yeah.
you've got that kind of sound, and you've got the boingy thing I just made, and some of the more like ambient, oh, there we go, like ambient stuff. It covered this synth, even though it's a very traditional analog style synth, it can cover a lot of ground. What's this one? And this one is using some of the step sequencers.
Right. Just a few patches.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is a relatively simple sound.
Right.
Right. I mean,
but you wanted different things to do things than what it had set up to do things. So.
But sometimes, this might look complex, but sometimes it takes a lot of complexity to arrive at something simple.
Right.
And
you don't want to like try to see if you can simplify it because you might break it.
Yes. One of the things that we try to do is clean up programming that's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while we will miss something, not just on this synth, but going back the last 35 years, there'll be some parameter that's cranked up to 100, but it doesn't do anything. This is the kind of thing that we actually try to clean up at the end of the day, so we're not mystifying keyboard players all over the earth.
Right.
But for the most part, if there are patch cables
mm-hmm.
in any one of my sounds, it's probably deliberate.
Right. Yeah, you've thought about it for.
I thought about it. I'm like, okay.
The other thing to point out: right click on one of the cables just to show that you can actually change the color of the cable.
Oh yeah.
So if you wanted to group things by like, these are my audio cables, these are my modulation cables, you could color them. So, and there's actually a color spectrum chooser in the settings.
Settings,
yeah,
right.
At the very bottom, there's including hot dog stand if you want just cheap orange and yellow cables, and it will use those to change the color range of colors you have for your cables.
I didn't realize why this was called hot dog stand until we had our little pre-production meeting yesterday, and somebody said ketchup and mustard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I would never ever put ketchup on a hot dog, so that's probably why it
now that's
connect.
New York right there. That's New York.
Oh yeah.
You live in LA, but it's still New York, coming through.
Yeah, no, I'm still New Yorker at heart. I'll put the red onions on once in a while, but
what about relish? Saturday. What about relish?
No, never. No? I was never a relish guy.
Okay.
Or a gherkin guy. Sauerkraut and mustard.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got this,
Right. So you have
some of these are just
got all sorts of personality things you can do. So it's fun.
Yeah. And it, like you said, it is really useful. Okay, you're done with the patch. You have this tangle of patch chords. How can I make this look a little more presentable, and understandable the next time I come and look at it? You can change the colors and make a scheme. Like,
hey,
okay,
Peter, everybody's asking what synthesizer is above the prophecy behind you. I can't tell what that is either. Is that a?
Oh, it's a Maxi Korg.
A Maxi Korg.
Maxi Korg.
Wow.
That is 2 mini Korgs in one package. It's actually duophonic. I don't have it hooked up right now.
Wow, man.
Yeah,
that's kind of rare.
it's kind of rare, and all the stuff you see on the top normally isn't there. I modded the hell out of it.
Oh wow, okay.
It's got CVNs and
it looks like a Mid-Journey synthesizer. If you put into AI Mid-Journey, synthesizer, you get all sorts of like weird knobs where they shouldn't be, but
right.
Here's a case where it's on purpose.
It's on purpose, yeah.
They obviously modeled your studio for Mid-Journey.
Who knows what this camera sees when I'm not in the room.
I know, right, man? It's sending all sorts of information to the cloud. Well, thank you. This was
yeah.
We went nice and deep there, and I think that should show people it's cool to see how you could reroute things and how easy it is. You just say, no, I want to use something else and use a cable. that's all you're doing is it's this is the flexibility that you don't have in most synthesizers to like, I want to go out of the order that they designed the synth. That's one of the fun things with the ARP is that you can put an oscillator into weird work situations beyond being just a sound source. You know, it can be something that's modulating something else that turns into modulating the filter, and then you get mustard.
Yeah, you can do some really weird stuff. Would you have out in the manual where you can actually run? Oh, how do you do that? There was a set as input. So, who would ever think that it would be useful? Well, I just want to change the color. Something right. Who would ever think it would be useful to run the output of an oscillator into the output of another oscillator? But there's a quirk in the ARP 2600 design where that can actually do some useful stuff, and that's detailed in the manual.
Right.
And this again is it illustrates the level of detail that these guys went into
Right.
in getting this thing modeled after the real thing.
Right. There's no other 2600 model in software like you saw it. He had the sawtooth connected to the sawtooth because it has audio inputs of the sawtooth available to it. That doesn't exist in the Arturia, the Cherry Audio versions. So,
Yeah, and I just learned about this the other day, so I'm not going to experiment with this in front of everybody, but once the camera switched off, I'm going to see what this does. But
more
yeah.
exploring to do. It's yeah, there's fun. The thing about this is there's happy accidents waiting to happen, and that's one thing, you know, like we're going to show in a minute this Juno 60 library, and it's really preset what it can do, and it sounds great, but happy accidents are few and far between because you can't change the order of the way it was created. That's one of the things where the ARP, I think, maybe was king, because even a mini Moog, as great as it sounds, it's preset in order for the most part what it does. Whereas here, you know, if you want something to be in a different use case, all you have to do is patch it and it's done. You know.
Let me. Do we have like another minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
For you, anytime, man.
All right. So what would happen? Let's see here. So this is oscillator 1, normaled square wave, normal to the input of the filter. What would happen? I'm going to turn up the ring mod because and let's do square wave. So the ring mod, we're not hearing anything right now because we need another input, right? So what would happen, and this is the kind of thing you can do with this thing. What would happen if I put oscillator 2 into low frequency mode? And so basically use an audio input for one input of the ring mod and a low frequency oscillator as the other input, because normally a ring mod is supposed to like take 2 audio signals and mess them up.
Right.
Oh, look at that. So that's what you get. It's almost acting like an amplifier. The LFO is changing the gain of the amplifier. So now what happens if I modulate the frequency of this low frequency oscillator using an envelope generator? So let's say quick attack and a long decay. And let's jam this up.
Right. Get that cool flutter to slow down thing.
Little flutter to slow down. So let's just cheat and throw the unison ensemble on there. It becomes a little bit unpredictable.
It's a cool tone.
If you really want to make it unpredictable, you take some sample and hold and run that in. I don't even need to do that because sample and hold is pre-wired. So, and I can take the gate and I can use that to trigger the sample and hold so that it's different every time I play a key. So maybe that's a little too much, so I'll back it off. But this is the kind of like, okay, what if?
Right.
What would happen if I did something that you're like not supposed to do, like ring mod an audio signal with an LFO? It's kind of an interesting result.
Yeah. It's still a mono voice effect, so if you couldn't play a chord with that.
Oh yeah.
Oh. That's very cool. By the way, as you saw it, down the bottom right is where you can change polyphony. So if you want it to be more notes of polyphony, you can do that, which is great.
Yeah, okay, I did that really quick. I switched to poly mode.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm working on an older computer, so I can actually only run 4 notes.
Oh.
That's why I set it to 4.
Right.
While you weren't looking, I am modulating the filter
and then you
with
filtered
the same envelope generator that I'm using to create this sort of variable speed flutter effect from VCO2.
Right. A little resonance.
You know, and I think things start to get interesting.
Yeah, it's great.
So who needs 8 notes of polyphony?
Save that patch too.
Oh, okay. New thing
too.
Back later.
Yeah. So there you go.
So
some people are asking about resizing, and just to note, I've heard from some people that the resizing does work. It's vector graphics, or it's not vector graphics, so it's just JPEG type images, so it won't have the same sharp clarity at 100%, but you can change it to larger size interfaces if you need for it to take up more of your screen. You can.
Yeah, you know, I've been using this at like 110 or 120 to fill up my big monitor. I mean, I haven't really noticed.
It's not a big deal to you.
It's not a big deal. No.
Yeah.
It's really not. I'd rather it be bigger than. It's still clear. Yeah, there's a tiny little like fidelity change. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Well, you got a mini Korg Duo behind you, so some of those sliders probably aren't readable at this point, you know. So.
Yeah. The paint's worn off some of them.
That's just how it works, man.
1974 or something.
Wow.
It's crazy old. Good. But it still works. And that thing holds a tune better than anything.
Wow.
Yeah. I can turn that on and it's like almost like instantly in tune.
Go figure.
As opposed to the Oberheim, which takes like 2 hours to warm up.
And then it's a heater in the room in the summer, which is always fun. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you for showing and spending time and giving people some in-depth thoughts. We'll do this again and show. I would love to. More of your wonderful works when it's ready for everybody to install and play with. So that would be really fun.
I would love to. You know, I think you can tell I'd like to talk synths.
Yes, it's a passion, man.
And I love answering questions too. But I know you're running out of time. We're probably running like way long. So and you got stuff to show. So let's do this again.
Yes, we will do it again. Everybody save their questions for August, and we'll be back.
It's 10 days away.
I know it's not that far away. Good Lord. Well, thank you again, Peter. And
you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Cool, brother. Okay, I'm going to move you over there, and I will talk to you soon.
All right.
Cheers, brother.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Such a cool guy. Such a good friend. So yeah, he has a library in the works that we'll be releasing for this 2600. So if you want, that's some assurance that there's going to be even more support for it coming out. It has lots of really great sounds out of the box and fun things to play with. I also wanted to point out there's a thing on the Korg website you can get called the ARP. Oh, get the ARP to go away for a second here. The 2600 Patch Cookbook. And this is the original one with a table of contents and how to make 100 different patches. And so it goes through and shows you where to set everything in the 2600 And the interface is a little bit different because of the new things added, but they have gone through and made every one of these patches inside of the 2600, and the cookbook and the patches all line up. And if you go to the librarian and you say 2600 patch book, then you can go through and have the same patches. Also, on the trim pots, just down here, when it gets to reverb type, they have both the high input and low input. The original hardware input to the reverb, it has a built-in spring reverb. And if you set it to high input, it sounds like an original 2600. It's actually distorting the input a little bit. It was so hot. And if you turn off the invert, it makes it a mono spring reverb because they did a trick with the spring reverb to make it stereo of just inverting the phase on the other side, which if you sum to mono, cancels. So if you set this to inverting off, now you have a mono reverb. And just the parameters that you have to work with, just give this another level of detail. Seriously, no other plugin has come anywhere close to what we can do here. So I was going to show just one thing really quick. Let's go over here and have some fun for a second. Let's call up a rad bad beat. Let's call up some sort of big groove where it's playing all sorts of stuff. Let's go over here and say 2600 as an audio effect. And this will add the 2600 at the output. It's mono. Go to the librarian. Let's go to the output effects. You're able to play with it. In all sorts of crazy ways. And as you can see inside of I hit bypass and it's still not working. It's still playing. Okay, another patch. So I can do all sorts of cool things, just like you could if you were in a studio with the 2600. So it works as it's supposed to work. So really, really fun. So if you don't have the Korg Collection, definitely try the demo version just so you get a taste. There's so many synthesizers at this point that they've included to it that it's just pretty cool. All right, let's shift gears. I'm going to talk for a minute about Tal-U-No-60. We have unified the factory patches. They're available to download from the website. If you are new to Unify, you can go to the website, pluginguru.com. And let me show you real quickly the steps. If you go to Unify and click the tab and scroll down, you'll come to an area where we have all of the unified libraries to all of these plugins, which is the factory patches saved in Unify format. The new OB1 that just came out last week is here as unified. So all the patches are available. And if you get down to TAL, you will see that we have a number of TAL, including TAL PHa, as well as Tal-U-No-LX, Tal-U-No-60. So those are available, which gives you the right, the unified. Now, the new library we just released is by Saif Samir, and this gives you just incredible, ready to be used in productions. Of all 205 patches in this library. And again, for this, you have to own the plugin because it's a library for a particular plugin. So Tal-U-No-60 is what we are looking at. And Good stuff. That's the reverb built into it and everything. You can go to the presets. If you install, there's two versions for the Uno 60 to install. There's this version where it's all, and then there's one cat, which is categorized by folders, so you can work with it. I'll just go through some of the patches. It has a great sound. And what's fun is to maybe take something like this and then say, I like that, but I want to add to it. So say duplicate the layer, open up the second one. Let's go to the pads. And let's say like maybe something like this and so it's wonderful to play in Unify where just by saying duplicate this layer, I can just build my own set of just going through these patches. Let's go to like maybe, where's some plucks? I think having a little attack thing would be, or keyboards. There's a whole bunch of keyboard patches. There's like, so much reverb. You get the idea. That's what's fun with Unify, is to play with everything. So they're available as patches just for Uno 60, as well as a unified library that you can choose from. Oh, I called these down in the video mid drone. These are great. So fun library. Now, I have one more thing to show you guys. We're just about done for the day. And that is Bob's next library. And I'm not going to show you the interface or tell you the name of this yet. I'm moving it off screen. And I have to do a couple things here to get us to the right vibe. I'm going to turn off my webcam. Let me make sure I do this right. Go over here like that. That's almost right. Let me turn off some more lights in the room. Right, left. Turn this off. There we go. Okay, and I take off these glasses. That looks pretty good. Okay, and I'm gonna go over here to this new library that I can't tell you what it is yet. Why am I not seeing it? Oh, I hit it because I wasn't going to show it. And then I decided last night, I'm like, you know what? I think I'll give you guys a little teaser for this to get you excited because it's pretty cool. So give me 30 seconds here to fix this boo-boo on my part. Move this over here, put it into, oh, I got to do that. Go over here to here and rebuild. And let's see, got to get these guys running because we must have our glasses that are appropriate for what we're about to play, right? So, all right, how's that? Oh, these are fun. Yeah, but they turn off. I don't know why they turn off. I got to figure out what's going on that they're, there we go. And come over here. And I'm just going to play you a handful of sounds Are you ready? You're not ready, but it's not for ambient. And where's it at? Takes it a second to load this one because it's. And you move the mod wheel. So fun. Isn't that cool? So, get ready for next week. We're going someplace different with our libraries. Thanks to Bob doing a wonderful job programming something really, really fun to play with. So that's just a small sampling of what's to come. Thank goodness those glasses showed up at the last minute. I was like, I hope they show up. And they did. So hope you like that. Hope that was fun. So thank you for joining us for this live stream. That was fun. Thank you to Peter Schwartz, Mr. Ski, for sharing his time, knowledge, all the stuff that he has been able to be a part of. Is just, he's got a lot of history to what he has been involved with in the music world, large parts of it. So it's really, really fun. Shout out time. Where are you guys at? I want to know where everybody's at. Speed it up. You can speed it up. Shout out from Eagle, Idaho. Yay. If you're having problems, make sure you get a hold of tech support. We're here to help you guys out. In Golden, Colorado, Louisville, Colorado. Good to see you, Dave, Mark, Rob in the Netherlands. Cheers, my friends. Virginia. Yes, make sure you're running the latest version of UNO-60. That would be, let me show you where to find that out if you're curious, because they have done some things to the UNO-60 engine. You need to be at 4.9.3. Shane actually did a conversion of Saeed's patches with an older version, and LFO and everything was all messed up. So they've changed internal parameters, so it won't work with older versions of UNO-60. So make sure you update. Cleveland, USA, Tony, good to see you. Richard, in Canada, awesome. Guys in France, someone else in the Netherlands. Thank you all. Bob, of course, from Greece. Good work, my friend. We got more to talk about. So, and Daniela in Cologne. Awesome. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, it's good to see you all. Thank you for joining us. We had a good time. I had a good time. I love doing these. It's fun to connect with everybody and share stuff and learn a little something new. I learned some things today myself, so it was really fun. We will see you next week for another live stream. We are about to start our July birthday sales, so get ready for some newsletters coming out. We do $20 libraries for 24 hours. So some really cool opportunities coming up this week. So with that, let's put these back on and say, I will see you. Oh, I can change the colors if I go over here and change these like that. And here, let's turn this off so that it's turn this darker or off. There.